Union Arena, top 5 rulings you probably don't know. Number 1. So I'll be going over the Rei Toshiro, which is one of the most misunderstood cards despite being released in the set 1 Bleach set. We won't be going over the full effect, we will just be going over the key phrase. It'll be remain set to resting until the end of their next attack phase. Next, we'll be going over scenarios involving this specific phrase. So if raided on your turn, your opponent cannot use an active trigger from their life to turn the card that you chose to be frozen active. Also, and on their turn, they cannot use a card like this 1-cost Yachiro to turn, for example, a frozen Kenpachi active. So basically, the frozen card remains set to resting until the end of their next attack phase. It is essentially a continuous lingering effect that cannot be overridden until the end of its entire ability resolution. So of course, this only applies to the card chosen to be frozen. So if the card that you chose to be frozen is a base card and your opponent will raid on it, the lingering frozen effect doesn't transfer to the raid card. So what happens if you raid your Toshiro on your opponent's turn, for example, as a raid trigger? So for example, you flip up Toshiro as a raid trigger and then you raid on your opponent's attack phase and you choose to freeze the Sukuna. So what happens at the end of your opponent's attack phase? At the end of your opponent's attack phase, the card will turn active because according to this ruling, if the raid is performed with the card during your opponent's attack phase, the ability gains effect until end of that attack phase. So it's very important that you know this ruling in case you want to raid on your opponent's turn because you'll effectively only be freezing their card for the duration of that attack phase. Number 2. So we'll be going over the 6-cost Yubaha from set 1 Bleach. We won't be going over the full effect, we'll just be going over the key phrase. Choose up to 1 rated card on your opponent's front line and place its top rated card into their sideline. So for the sake of simplicity, we'll be calling this a strip effect because it essentially moves just the top layer while keeping the bottom layer or the base card in play. So for example, if we have an opposing Nanami rated card and we use this strip effect, the top card is placed into the sideline and it is not sidelined and thus it cannot activate its when sideline ability. So this is more important now because nowadays we have cards like this 5-cost Yami released in the new Black Clover set that has pretty much the exact same effect, whereas before Yubaha was the only card that had this strip effect. We also have these new cards, so they will essentially apply this stripping effect to themselves under different conditions. And next we'll be going over situations where this mechanic is important. So for example, let's say we play our 4-cost rated Kenpachi onto a 4-cost unrated Kenpachi, turning it active. And now we enter combat, we go swinging, we attack, we rest our Kenpachi, and man, we're pretty unlucky because we hit an opposing special trigger, they target our Kenpachi. But it's not the end of the world because we will activate its effect to discard 1 card to activate its self-stripping ability, placing the top Kenpachi into the sideline instead. So what happens to the base card? Well, basically the base card, the unrated Kenpachi, will remain rested because at the activation of your self-strip effect, the top Kenpachi was rested, so the base card will retain the rested state of the rated card. So let's look at another scenario. So we have our 4-cost Kenpachi and we go attacking. So we're pretty unlucky because we hit a yellow color trigger. The yellow color trigger says choose 1 character on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting. It remains set to resting the next time it will be switched to active. So let's say we attack with another card and man, we're pretty unlucky again and we hit an opposing special trigger and they target our Kenpachi with the special trigger. But no matter, we use its ability to discard 1 card from our hand to self-strip and we place the top card into the sideline. So what happens to our unrated Kenpachi? So basically it's considered a new card despite maintaining the rested state of the rated card, but it is not affected by abilities that have affected the rated card. So what happens at the end of the turn? It will turn active. Number 3. So with the new Black Clover set, we have when sideline cards that can actually be rated on, like this 4-cost Xenon and its base card, the 1-cost Xenon. So what happens if this interacts with a UG raid? Basically, the UG raid, when played, will bounce the top Xenon card to hand, and what will happen to the base or bottom card? So the ruling says that when a rated card on the field moves to a destination other than to the field, we will move the top card to that destination and we'll place the underlying card into the sideline. And these cards are not treated as having being sidelined. So basically, if this card is sent to the opponent's hand, the base card is placed to the sideline and its when sideline effect doesn't trigger. Consequently, let's say that the Xenon is sidelined, for example, in combat or by a removal event. The rated card is considered sidelined, but the base card is not considered sidelined despite also going into the sideline. So the base card's when sideline ability will not activate. Number 4. So what happens when you have a rated Sukuna that battles a rated Nanami? Considering that the Sukuna has impact 1 because we have 2 fingers and Nanami has its when sideline ability. So what is the order of ability activation when they enter combat and the Sukuna wins the battle? So if you look at the ruling, it says that we need to first sideline the characters being attacked, then we will resolve any sideline abilities of that character and any other abilities that activate when that character is sidelined. And then we will resolve any of the abilities that activate when you win a battle, like Impact 1. So in this example, the Kento Nanami is sidelined. His when sideline ability activates. So the opposing player will mill 2 cards, then rest the card, and then we will activate the Impact 1 Sukuna effect, dealing 1 damage to life. Number 5. So let's say we are in this scenario with an Asuna in the back line and a rated Kirito onto the front line that has the effect. If on the front line at the end of this character's attack, you may swap it with an Asuna on your energy line. So what happens when we attack with our Kirito and we sadly hit a special trigger? Basically, the ruling says that if this character is sidelined and it is no longer under the field after its attack, you cannot move Asuna from your energy line to your front line. So basically, the end of the attack refers to after the trigger checks are done. Bonus. So let's say we have this scenario. We have our 1 cost Ichigo with 2500 BP versus the only 2000 BP as node. But don't forget that as node says this character gains 1000 BP for each resting character on your opponent's front line. So what happens when the Ichigo attacks? So don't forget, when you attack, the card is actually considered rested. And according to Asnod's effect, he will go up to 3000 BP, and thus being higher BP than Ichigo, he would be able to successfully block the attack. Alright, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe for more videos.